go. We're done being polite. Give her stuff.
All right, we are live, everyone. Good morning. It is the December 10th Urban and Economic Development Committee meeting. I'm Councilor Bellis chairing this meeting. First item on the agenda, I call this meeting to order. Second item on the agenda, Jay Crottinger, reappointment to the Tulsa Performing Arts Center Trust, term expires June 30th, 2028. Had good meeting attendance from my council district. You can sit wherever.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us. If you wouldn't mind telling us about your experience serving and why you'd like to continue serving
Sure.
this
Well,
body.
before I get started, I'm familiar with all faces here, so if you wouldn't mind,
Yes.
go around. And I'm Jay Crottinger. Bill, I know you.
Yep.
Carol Bush, District 9, Midtown.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Laura Bellis, she, hers.
Yes.
No, sorry, I'm so used to my nonprofit setting. Anyway, District 4, so
Yep.
downtown Midtown.
Yep.
It's good to see you.
Jackie Dutton, District 3.
Vanessa, District 1.
Karen Gilbert, District 5.
I'm
Yeah,
Sarah
you-
Davis, I'm the council administrator.
I'm Lori.
What do you do here?
What do you do here?
Secretary to the council.
Great.
She does.
She keeps us in line.
It's so nice to meet everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you. I'm
too.
sorry. It's been a minute since I've been here.
No, that was a good
And there's
shake-up.
been a regime change, and so it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, no, we don't want any stranger danger at the
Right.
table. So.
My experience at the PAC Trust, is that the question?
Yeah, your experience and why you want to continue serving.
Okay.
Generally what you do.
Or you can tell us about yourself too, but don't start too far back.
Sure. Well, just a brief history. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. Hi, how are you? Good. Thanks for having me here today. And also thank you for approving the previous appointment to the PAC Trust. You know, I have a long history in entertainment as a producer. And I'm also a full member of the Broadway League, which is the trade organization for Broadway producers, which that makes me a Tony voter and all those other things associated with entertainment. And to bring that home to the PAC and the trust is that my role there has been a wonderful experience. I have a strong desire to see that Tulsa also within the other fine arts, such as ballet, opera, music theater, and all the other programs that they support over there, also have a world-class facility, and that we, in this region, can be a hallmark of entertainment, just like we have with other facilities in Tulsa. So being now as the vice chair there, I really look forward to participating with everybody here on the council, along with Mark in the leadership there, to ensure that our goals and objectives with the city and this region are met, to ensure that we can be a shining beacon for the region for our goals there with the city. So I'm looking forward to the next few years. I think you guys are probably all aware of some things that we're working on to ensure that while that renovation happens, that we have a successful impact on the city's revenue, and also maintain our patron base, and the important things that Mark and his staff over there are ensuring to happen. So yeah, what other questions you got?
I think you're doing a great job. I really
Covered it
appreciate
all.
I know, you
all
answered all.
that you and the trust board are doing for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there anything that you need from me or need from us, or anything that we can do be better advocates for our programming in our goals and objectives with the city over there? Is there anything that I can relay to the trust and what we're doing?
I just think that it's always helpful, even though I know that's not always the fun case to make, because we should care about and love art for the sake of art and artistic expression, but to make that economic case and help. It's always really helpful and helps us support you all as well to make sure that the community more broadly really understands like the economic contributions of the arts to our city. Again, not the most glamorous thing to ask for, and it makes a big difference because sometimes people don't realize how all of that layers in.
Sure. Well, I think it's, without getting too far in the weeds with it, I know this may sound like an idealistic statement or far-fetched for some to believe, but, I'm 43 years old. I've been in entertainment my entire life. And, communities at a fundamental level fail particularly with their young people when arts don't exist. And arts save lives. They do
100%.
at the most groundbreaking level. And I don't want that to sound weird, but what we're doing over there is really important to this community. And I want you all to know that you should have confidence and faith in what is happening there, because there's been a lot of changes, really positive changes within that organization, and I firmly believe, and I fought very hard to get into position to be there, to be a part of all that with Mark. So, just rest assured that you have other than Mark and others that are, you have I'm an industry professional in this business, and I know and understand how important it is for us to do the things we're doing over there and work really hard for the asks that we have to be taken seriously. It's easy for the arts to be the first thing to go
Yeah.
in any community, and we understand that. But it's important that we do take pause and take an important moment to know and understand why, if there is a reason for those things to go away, or if there's other considerations to be made surrounding it. So thank you all very, very much for everything you do to listen and understand what we want and that we need. And please, actually, here's something really important. Today, and I'm happy to email this to everybody, because I'm a member of our trade organization, the Broadway League, I just received, hot off the press, the 2024-2025 demographic, it's a 70-page document that we compiled. It's a national document, and it's not just with Broadway, but it's also about regional touring and how the arts in Broadway have an impact on communities and what those demographics are. So I'm happy to actually distribute that to this council.
That'd be great.
If you guys would like to look into it, to understand, when we say something over there, it's based on facts and data from industry experts who understand the demographics of the business. So,
I think that would be incredibly helpful.
yeah,
to have.
I would
Thank you so
love to do
much.
that. So I can, if someone wants to send me, or if I can distribute to one person that gets to everybody, I'm happy to do that.
Yes.
Thanks
I'm
for
putting to
As
Sarah.
they look at Lori.
I'm waiting to Sarah Davis can help
Okay.
facilitate that. Sorry, I'm giving you homework. Yes.
Yes, yeah.
All right, Councilor Lakin.
Sorry, I don't mean to get into all the weeds about it, but.
No, I mean, we just, all got to experience all the excitement around The Outsiders for the last, 2 years, it seems like, with the Broadway performance, and then the touring show as well, the road show. I went 2 nights in a row. I'm so proud every time I go to hear Tulsa said, 67 times from the stage, but now it's not being said from a Tulsa stage to Tulsans. It's being said from other stages to people who don't know anything about Tulsa, over and over and over again. So if you can find another local author who can write a book, who can have a movie and a Broadway production made, then that would be outstanding.
Well, personally, professionally, as our organization produces things, we do seek properties that have a tie to Oklahoma. And here's a good example. Sam Harris was just here 2 weeks ago. I've known Sam since 2000. I worked with him doing a show a long, long time ago. And Sam and I just talked on Monday about a musical that he has written, and they're looking to produce. And we've got some producers interested. He's also written a movie that's under consideration. And I told Sam how important it is for us to make sure that from this community that we're involved with those who are from Oklahoma, so there can be that tie, and there can be a face on the map, or faces on the map. I'm very close with Kristen Chenoweth, and we're in her show, The Queen of Versailles, and all that.
Oh, I
And
know, it's
we're
closing so
having a
early.
tough time with all of that, but,
know.
my point is that, we work really hard to ensure that our relationships with Oklahoma artists do stay true, and that we can continue to make that connection here back to Tulsa or the surroundings. So there will be more,
Good.
and it's something we want to ensure that does happen. So, and like you said, The Outsiders is an advertisement for Tulsa
It is.
every single night on Broadway, and not just on Broadway, but it is touring around the country, and it is blowing out of the water our expectations. So Tulsa's being advertised across the country right now.
I
So,
love it.
yeah, pretty neat. So,
Thanks for your part.
Well, thank
Yep.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Big part.
We will be voting on this on the 17th during our 5 o'clock meeting. You are welcome to attend, but you do not have to. And if you want to talk more about Queen of Versailles stuff, I'd be super interested.
Sure.
it's no Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, but sorry,
Right.
too soon still. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to move on to our next agenda item. Thank you
Thank you all.
again.
It's a pleasure.
We are on agenda item
Thank
3,
you.
ordinance amending the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget to make supplemental appropriations of $500,000 recognized from unappropriated fund balance within the 2020 sales tax fund for the Mingo sidewalk improvements. And we have Jared from Finance here to tell us a little bit about it, and then I have some notes / reminders from Counselor Dechter-Wright about this to share because it's her baby.
Because I was hoping to offload most of the work on.
Yes, no,
on this, but
I have taken it.
thank you. This is just the last administrative step of appropriating dollars to this priority project that was approved by council on October 8th. It's $500,000 of the priority council district money, and it's going to be for construction of a sidewalk, phase 1 and 2 on the east side of South Mingo from 81st to 91st.
Okay.
It's the second project, and there's about $445,000 left, District 7 funds.
Yep. Here, just the quick notes from Counselor Dechter-Wright. We've talked about this at this table. It's been several weeks, but just as a quick refresher, this is for that sidewalk gap. It'll connect 9 miles of South Mingo. It's an infill sidewalk project. There's been a lot of pedestrian crashes, including a fatality in the area. This is the second time that District 7's funds have been put forward. The first time was for $75K, and there's still a whole other chunk remaining. This will help that miles adjacent to the VA clinic Hillcrest South in a 300-unit apartment complex, so and a lot of retail, et cetera, so really going to help with walkability and safety in a regional medical corridor, as well as helping people get to transportation to the TCC Southeast campus. That's all the info. There's some recent reporting on it. Seems like it's being positively received, and any other construction that would yield sidewalk improvements over there is at least a decade out, so it's important timing.
Isn't that about 5 years old as well?
Which
The date, the sidewalk monies and going forward with it.
I don't know. I just know that there's like.
I think,
I didn't
yeah.
hear the question.
How long has it been? Sort of
She said isn't it 5 years old about which
Yeah.
piece? The side.
The sidewalk request initially and then
Oh.
just getting it to this point.
Oh, that time, I don't know, and I don't, for this specific
Okay.
piece, I don't know off the top of my head.
I just want to squelch any comments that somehow it was an under the table something
This is
for.
coming from a different funding.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, this is
that
separate from
there were
that.
questions regarding why certain areas of Tulsa get neglected as opposed to the perceived idea
Oh.
that South Tulsa
I
gets.
guess I would say that every district had an equal amount of
Right.
community development funds.
Right, thank you.
That were $1 million that address the unique needs and desires of each community. And so that's why in a
Yes.
form, when these projects get approved, and you won't see the form in this backup material, but I think we do, once these are approved, have a page on our website that shows those projects.
Right.
It will show the community engagement or the need or how this aligns to comprehensive plans for each project. So each district has equal access to that $1 million pot.
Okay, yeah, thank you for clarification.
Yeah. And I think that's always an important flag that we all know there's never enough sidewalk and lighting money anywhere to be found. Okay. Is there any other questions or anything on that item? Again, this is kind of like, and as Jared said, like a last administrative step, and Counselor Dechter-Wright, sorry, she's not gonna be here for another 12 minutes, so she's just barely missing. Okay, to talk about it again, but thankful for her work on this. Okay, we are on agenda item 4, part of an ongoing series, council committee discussion regarding possible selection of charter amendments. Because it's charter amendment season, which Ben Kimbrough made fun of me once when he was on the council for being happy about. Yeah, on the record, he laughed and said that no one should be this happy about charter amendments.
Good morning, councilors. Yeah, so this is, you recall you adopted the charter amendment schedule on November 5th, and this is the first of about 4 months of meetings for your consideration of possible charter amendments. So just by way of background, just 5 or 6 slides here, and then we'll just kind of open it up for kind of a free-form discussion. Again, we're very early in the process, but the Oklahoma Constitution provides that proposals for charter amendments will be submitted by the legislative authority of the city to electors. Of course, that's you.
Thank you. I'm gonna throw off the flow.
And our charter itself provides that you will periodically submit to qualified electors amendments necessary to provide for representative, efficient, and economical administration of city government. And then the implementing ordinance provides that not only will you consider amendments, but you will actively solicit those as well. So there are a couple of public hearings built into the process, but that shouldn't limit the ways in which you solicit ideas for charter amendments. Of course, that's kind of your purview there. And just a little bit of context, more broadly speaking, just to kind of put the charter in perspective. The charter is our legal constitutional framework. So it defines the basic organization and essential functions of city government. It's not meant to kind of be some sort of uber ordinance that, because the charter is only changeable by election. So it's not very flexible and it's not very adaptable to changing circumstances. So these kind of need to be the more fundamental, the more fundamental framework of city government. But there are, of course, other mechanisms, ordinances, resolutions, rules and regulations, budgets, reporting, and other ways that you might get at your goals if a charter amendment's not the right approach. But there may be those things that you think, no, fundamentally, we need to kind of modify the way our city government works, and that's what this process is for. So we would encourage you to really just start at this stage with an idea and define your goal, and then let us kind of help you identify and implement the right approach to achieve it. It really is kind of a brainstorming phase. I mean, we won't start by throwing up obstacles or impediments. There will be those, but at this stage, just kind of, it would be most helpful if you can just kind of let us know where you want us to head in terms of doing the research and the drafting, and we'll help you get something proposed for your colleagues to consider. And then here's a reminder of the schedule. So from today through tax day, we're having periodic council committee discussions like this. They can be focused if you want to focus them on particular items or issues, or they can be kind of open-ended idea sessions. And then in late March, early April are the public hearings we mentioned, and then all leading to a vote on April 15th for kind of a final slate of charter amendments. Now, that's not the final language that'll go to voters, but that's kind of the council vote for the final list of items that then we will go back to the drawing board and develop and refine and finalize the language that will come back to you on May 6th for a final vote. And that's all leading to an August 25th election. There are many constitutional and statutory requirements for charter changes. That's why the long lead time. We have to publish those 21 times, for example. So there's a lot of lead time, but that's the basic schedule. And with that, we can just open the floor if you'd like for a discussion, and we'll take good notes.
Is there anyone with a charter amendment idea they want to share? I know we're probably all in development phase. Okay. Or also, just for newer council colleagues, it could always be fun to look at past, like, charter amendments in the past few years to get ideas about the kinds of things we can amend. Or Ben Kimbrough probably has ideas from when he promoted charter amendments. Sorry, I'm just putting you on the spot because you're over there, and you've done some fun ones. Okay. Yeah, Councilor Archie.
Maybe Sarah or Jack, talk about the public hearing process. Are those public hearings hosted by the city council, by the individual councilor? This being our first time going through, maybe talk about that element.
It's like the 5 o'clock agenda public hearings, right?
Mm-hmm. The ones that are in the schedule are the 5 o'clock, where people can come comment.
Mm-hmm.
But like Jack said, how you solicit feedback, individually or collectively can look very different.
For sure.
So, that's why I think it's important with the idea and the goal, just similar how we start with our council retreat or things like that, what are you hearing from citizens, or what operationally have you found that the issue is actually in the charter? And if the issue isn't in the charter, there still are ordinances or other mechanisms to fix those things.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, look forward to continuing our charter amendment discussion. And again, would encourage people, it's like, you can see even proposals from past years, some of which haven't made it forward, that could always be brought forward again. All right, we are moving on to agenda item 5, discussion with the mayor's office and representatives from Impact Tulsa regarding the fiscal mapping for the Office of Children, Youth, and Families. If people want to fill in it, we have an array of seats.
Okay.
Let's see.
Who would like to?
You go right here.
Okay.
We have-
All right, Councilor Gilbert, if you don't mind, give me your bubble. We're gonna pass out a,
Pop it while you're
Pop it.
standing.
I'm just gonna actually ask.
Why do you have to be so violent?
Take those.
I just said pop your bubble.
Pass
Yeah, that sounds really aggressive, so.
You're right, I mean, just calm it down.
I know.
Yes. If we could pass those around.
Said it with a
These are
smile.
extra for you all.
That helps.
Good morning, and because I'm feeling the holiday cheer, gonna say happy holidays to you all. Very grateful in this season. Very honored to be before you to talk about this tool we're really excited about. And on our parting, just so you have like a takeaway with you, we have like a 2-page overview of the fiscal map. But unless you all want it now, I just know some people tend to read and then not tune in. Yeah, do y'all wanna, or is that okay, or just trust you to do what you need to do?
Saying we have short attention spans?
No, just a facilitator best practice, but I'll go ahead and give it to you in case we have to rush out of
I
here.
can hand those up for you.
Thank you so much. And we can pass those around. But let's go ahead and start. I'm Ashley Phillips, and I'd like you to introduce yourself in case they have not met you. Dr. Lawson?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Luke Lawson, Director of Research and Analytics with Impact Tulsa.
And I'm Executive Director at Impact Tulsa and serve as the Director of the Mayor's Office of Children, Youth, and Families. And going to go ahead and kick off our fiscal map presentation.
Dr. Who, so I can know?
Luke Lawson.
Luke Lawson.
Luke Lawson, okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we're here to present the fiscal map tool, and you will hear me say the word tool multiple times today, because by the end of our presentation, I want us to have a shared language about the fiscal map and understand it as a tool, not an audit. It is very important that we establish that. Some questions I got might hint at interpreting it as an audit. It's merely a tool. We're going to discuss 2023 data as a starting point and then capture any questions, comments, or concerns from Tulsa City Council. And our flow today is just introducing you all to the fiscal map. This is the first comprehensive fiscal map of youth investments in our city's history. It represents several months of work collecting data from private sources and public dollars. And we are extremely grateful to the people and organizations who contributed to our first round of data collection. And we look forward to starting fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 data collection. You all, as our city council, your budget decisions are a critical lever in our city. And this tool is designed as a resource for you in your decision making. I also want to stamp that a fiscal map is not an evaluation of how any one entity is spending its money. It's an inventory. It's merely an inventory built from publicly available state and local budgets and validated through agencies, districts, and organizational officials. It answers, what do we have? And as a community, we're asking, what does it cost to get where we're trying to go? And not who is doing this wrong. So today we're sharing this tool that helps us understand where private and public dollars are already going to Tulsa's youth. And we're hoping it is a tool that you all see that helps inform how you make budget and capital investment decisions. I don't presume to know what it's like to be a city councilor, but assume that it can feel like you get a swarm of individual requests, often last minute, and then you're forced to evaluate and decide upon information that you've been provided. And we hope that this tool is a lever for you. So I've already gone over why we created a fiscal map. It does allow communities, because a fiscal map is a tool created through the Children's Funding Project that Dr. Lawson will speak to understand current investments, align your resources with your city goals, and coordination supporting services, coordinating supports and services, excuse me. And really important to us is maximizing funding opportunities and leveraging it to identify where attention can be directed, how things can be more efficient, and also to spur innovation. We all know having the SNAP, the government shutdown and SNAP loss looming and trying to figure out how to stand in the gap. It also allows you to plan for changes in federal allocations, impacting local budgets, programs, and services. So this gives us a baseline of youth serving dollars in Tulsa. It allows you all to see what exists, and it's not an evaluation or a judgment. So let's ground ourselves in what we're going to be talking about with the fiscal map. On the slide here, you'll see we have the mayor-council retreat priorities of homelessness, public safety, economic development, children, youth, and families. When we're talking about where funds are dedicated here, you're going to see how many funds are dedicated to these areas. I just want you to draw some correlations here. Of course, your homelessness is where we would see affordable housing. Your homelessness priority is also covered under ending homelessness. The children, youth, and families is improving student outcomes. Safety is pretty straightforward. And then children, youth, and families, economic development is where we would see workforce and careers for youth to kind of align on mayor council retreat priorities and how we are quantifying dollars. So to move on, we have varying levels of data between 2019 and 2023. And I want to start by sharing some of the trends that we noticed across 2019 and 2023. We see stability of safety funding, largely in our Tulsa County investment between $6 and $7 million annually. So I'm going to see if we have any. Do you have a question? Okay. Tulsa's outcome funding is largely shaped by federal investments and fixed county spending. So you're going to see consistency. You're going to see consistency with the 6 to 7 million annually. 95% of that is dedicated to juvenile detention, with 5% of the county funding going to proactive prevention for juvenile justice. You're going to see federal relief spike in 21 and 22 with the 10 million mental health grant, and then in 2021, and then your ARPA investments in 2022, which we're going to dive into on the next slide. And then philanthropy, we notice, is the most diverse. It funds across all 5 outcome areas. It's, of course, highest in student outcomes and lowest in housing across those years represented. And I want to take a minute to talk about council's strategic impact with ARPA and CDBG dollars. So we want to honor the work that the council did during COVID. Between 2020 and 2023, you all served as a local administrator for dozens of federal funding streams, particularly ARPA and CDBG that delivered critical supports to support youth and families. So these federal dollars were awarded nationally, but they only reached Tulsa's families because you all chose where they should go, who should be supported, and what priorities to advance. And thanks to your decisions, ARPA investments actually reached every single outcome area. And it's worth noting that ARPA is the most targeted outcome-aligned federal investment Tulsa has seen in decades. So the fiscal map makes this visible for the first time. It shows what strong local decision-making can accomplish when those flexible dollars are available. It also shows the limits. So once ARPA expired, Tulsa returned to the same structural funding landscape we had before. And like I said, we saw this reality again just weeks ago with the federal shutdown and SNAP uncertainty, ongoing threats to federal education funding. So when federal answers change, families feel it first, and you all have to try to absorb the pressure. So I want to stamp, this is not saying that your funding is insufficient. The message is that Tulsa actually used one-time dollars extremely well and has an opportunity to consider a long-term mechanism to sustain that progress. So just to close out here, I'm going to transition to our 2023 data, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. So you guys will be, in the following slides, we'll be breaking down the specific graphs and going through. Overall, through every funding possible outcome, we have $1.1 billion directed to youth in different ways, which includes the school system, all of the local school districts. Out of that, we are including post-secondary groups, but not necessarily ones that are responsible for educating children who have grown up outside Tulsa. So OSU Tulsa, OU Tulsa, and then TU would not be included in that side, but Tulsa Community College would, along with Tulsa Public Schools, Tulsa Tech, Union, Jinx, everybody there. A lot of the federal funding that you'll see in those graphs breaks down SNAP, Pell Grants, and child nutrition. You'll see that as a major group in there. Ashley, is there anything from this slide that you'd like to add before I transition?
Yeah, so this is a significant number that Tulsa invests annually in children. And I do think it's important to note on the left side, 86% of that money is over $900 million is formula-driven spending. So K through 12 instruction follows state funding formulas. SNAP benefits follow a federal eligibility criteria, and Pell Grants are also federally determined. So these are mandated dollars flowing through systems, separate systems locally with little flexibility. It's important to note that 14% is outcome directed. That's about $158 million of private and local public funding directed towards specific outcomes. So it's more flexible, and this is where coordination deeply matters to us, and it's where we rely on you as council members and your decision-making power. So we're going to share a little bit more about the methodology before diving into 2023 data.
Yep. So in the methodology that drives the fiscal map tool, we relied on a lot of guidance from the Children's Funding Project, where we're following a national fiscal mapping methodology that allows comparisons across communities. So in their tool that they've developed, they based it off of years of financial mapping experience and need to be able to replicate the same kind of data across different communities. So there are different judgment calls that we make throughout the coding process where we're following dictionary that we're following from them that distills buckets of funding that fall under children funding streams, and then separate that into the categories that are given to us through guidance for children funding projects. We've attached this to the priorities of Tulsa specifically and have built on it a little bit. But the important things to note before we jump into the graphs are that we're following the best practices of National Coding Dictionary established by the Children's Funding Project. And then another aspect that a lot of you may be curious about is that this removes capital funding from the tool and is more about ongoing grants and things that have been established and keeping the money going than it is in investments in specific facilities or anything like that. But yeah, with that, we're ready to break into the first map. So here you can see the funding broken down across years. The top line in red you can see is the funding that goes to all the school districts. This is Jinx, Tulsa Union Public Schools, Tulsa Community College, Tulsa Tech. And you can see that in the most recent year, there was $609 million that went there. We have large federal programs that are built into this map as well, which is SNAP, Pell, nutrition grants, everything along those lines. A key one that is missing is welfare. which we know is a whole topic now, especially with changes in the federal government and implications of things that are happening. That is something that can be built in the future, but isn't currently in the tool. The bottom line that you can see there brings in philanthropy, Tulsa, and Tulsa County. When we break this down for 2023 investments, you can see this pie chart shows how much money is being directed towards children from the different funding streams. In this, you can see that local philanthropy has a huge influence in Tulsa, funding groups in $133 million from the funders that we have reached out to and have provided us data along with tax information. Tulsa County funds $10.9 million, which is largely the juvenile justice system and programs related to building capacity and safety programs off of that. In the city of Tulsa here, across these initiatives that we have broken down these categories for, and under the specifications of the Children's Funding Project is listed at $3.2 million. And that's what it looks like in the full bucket of the $1.1 billion that goes directly to these groups. One thing that I want to call back, just going one slide back, you can see that the federal funding, which includes ARPA and those things, you can see the peak from COVID years that this council has been involved in directing and funneling to different programs across the city. So you can see that in the yellow line right there. And what we know from a lot of those federal funding streams is that since they're COVID relief programs, they've been canceled, won't be coming back, so we can expect that federal support to be dropping significantly.
Why isn't your blue line higher?
The blue line?
So we have, it's actually, the data is represented here in 2023. We had different levels of data that our private partners were able to show. So if we were to right size 2023 fill, for example, that would actually be $139 million.
133.
133, excuse me. But because one of our private funders was we were only able to get data for 2023, you won't see that represented here on this bar chart because it just looks like, oh, there was a big influx of money in 2023, and that's not an accurate narrative. That number is represented higher here because we're just doing a 2023 snapshot of the data we have from private partners in 2023. So 133 million is more of an accurate picture, but our data is only as strong as the data that we're able to get from our private partners.
So this isn't, I want to make sure we're understanding what.
I still don't understand
Yeah, I don't
I just don't want
question.
to.
If it's 139 million, why doesn't it say 139 million?
Yeah,
Can you
I
tell them why we moved it off of the graph?
Sure. So we have one large funding partner that we pulled data from 2023.
And they didn't send you.
We don't have 2019 through 2022 from that funding partner.
So they
So
just tossed,
it's-
you just
they
took
tossed
it
off
out.
the score to,
It's more
So
representative
you're showing a
of the
trend line here, but
patterns.
these aren't accurate
actual
numbers
numbers.
For this trend line,
for that trend line.
to take,
Yes.
yes, because we
Okay.
only had 2023 for this, no, that is not in here.
Okay, so while we're pausing, I do want to be careful when we're presenting data like that, then just on a, just to, as a quick other methodology check, just to make sure I understand other data that's been presented within this. Since, okay, so that's a part of a whole, when you guys talk about county and city dollars, does that include the library? Our library system, like our biggest youth third space? Just checking that.
So we have a spreadsheet of information that was collected from the city and
Okay.
how those funding groups were projected out. It does include the park system.
But not the
and,
library system.
General things, I'm not aware of whether it.
Okay, so this
was
doesn't include the library system, and then I'm a public health professional, so putting on a different hat, does this include Medicaid, health department, CHIP funding?
It does not include Medicaid.
Okay,
Yeah, no, it does not include
Okay, because I
Medicaid.
do want to like acknowledge, like when we think about, right, and I've highlighted this to this table before, when we look at like a New York City, or I think even like, think of like Louisville even, which I saw as a city mentioned here, they'll have their health department under their city government. Ours is separate, our health department, and I know this from close work, has a lot of youth programming as well. Medicaid covers different, and then as a last, so I just want to acknowledge like, just like what you just described for that trend line, where it's like, hey, there was like, to keep this consistent across the years, we pulled out one major funding source that has, 100 million in there as well, like at least for 2023. Like when it comes to city and county investments, there's also the library system, there's also our full health systems, which also has state funding. And,
Yeah.
well, and then I just wanted to also check, because I was looking at, the coded words, like the funding streams that the Children's Funding Project is helping pull for when you talked about that coding dictionary. And I saw that it maybe includes TSEP, but I wasn't sure if it included opioid, like abatement dollars as well, like for youth mental health funding. So I just, like, I want to,
narrow.
I want to acknowledge, and
Yes.
I've come across this before as as someone who runs a public health nonprofit that's part of the Birth to Rate strategy for Tulsa. A lot of times when organizations, I'm just naming this for my colleagues more as a context piece, when organizations work in an education space, it's like a really specific lens that's not always, service delivery there and some of like what counts as like youth serving things there can look really different than in a public health setting, right? Like, in a school-based setting, you're seeing a cohort of kids every day providing them X service. In a public health one, like a kid or a family like might come in one time a year ever. And so I'm just saying there's like these really different paradigms that we're talking about. And I think what we're seeing here, this is my own lens and you all can push back on me, represents a really specific education-based paradigm of youth-focused services and funding that may not include like our health system, which I could potentially understand why. But and I'm saying all this also because I want to caution us. I'm glad that Phil highlighted the like if there's like a big this dollar difference for 2023 that, and I want to make sure this is clear to the public too when we're looking at these numbers. They're not there are other government ongoing operational dollars, both government and private, that are serving youth that aren't represented here. I don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, though, that this still shows us trends and that there's going to be funding gaps. Yes,
I would
please
also
continue
like
your
to
presentation.
highlight the iterative nature of this. This is
Yeah.
round one. It's, again, an inventory of available data. So where I mentioned wanting feedback from council, we're gonna be grabbing fiscal year 25 data, fiscal year 24 data. What's possible to collect? What would you all like to see represented if possible? The children's funding map methodology is so that we can have state to state, city to city conversation. But it is not a finite thing and it is very dynamic. So I also want to just make sure
Yeah.
when we see these things, yes, we are all about improving on what makes it useful.
And I also want to name, and then I know I have other counselors, but I don't, if you guys aren't done, I want to make sure
We
you get to
have
finish as
a
well.
couple more slides.
I also just want to name though, just some of the like other context you hear me adding or from Councilor Lakin mentioning it is when this like at our table and stuff gets presented to the full public, what can end up happening is like, Kevin over there, a headline might be city only invests this much in kids, right? Like it can get really myopic because people. So when we're saying this is an iterative, I know. Make sure you talk to Kevin later. But no, no. This is. I'm naming that you're naming like, hey, we're engaging in this process of data collection and analyzing and being thoughtful about that together. And this isn't like a finite resource, but because if we're not careful, it can be presented as, hey, here's the full picture, here's the map, right? Because when here's map, they think it's showing a full comprehensive map, and you're saying, hey, we're iteratively collecting and working on something together. And I just want to make sure that's really clear to the public.
Yep.
Because otherwise, sometimes you can just have, someone will catch a soundbite from what's said here, right? We know a lot of people don't watch this meeting, but the news will, and then it'll become one soundbite headline from like our local Sinclair station. That's not comprehensive of the like work that you all are really doing and presenting for us.
An editorial by Councilor Bella.
It's just what happens. Local news doesn't have a lot of time. I have some different, Councilor Lakin, is this part of the,
It's just part of these slides.
yes, go ahead.
So is mine.
And so is-
I
okay, and
just-
then Dr.
I
Wright.
think if you include it in
Oh, I'm
the
sorry, I
pie
thought you said
chart,
you were
then
questioning
you
answer, my bad.
have to include it in the
Okay.
line chart or vice versa, because the two don't make sense to me at least.
Yep.
Yes.
When they're not consistent.
Yep.
And I don't know what other outliers are in the other previous fiscal years that we would have to take out if we're taking out outliers. I still don't understand why it's not.
Yes, so the previous slide was to show that additional deal is to show trend lines and active funding within Tulsa. This is to show the picture that we currently have, and this is the most accurate.
But
That
isn't the
previous graph
current
was done to show funding levels. Those funding levels have not changed, and the decision to show across years changes was done to reflect that, because that is our, the meaningful takeaways from that slide are not that this tool has one additional point that makes us more accurate from the most previous year. It's to show funding levels that have been provided to, from different institutions across years and how they have changed.
But isn't it accurate to say that 133 million came in from local philanthropy?
It is.
Okay, then I don't know why.
Yeah, and it needs to be represented.
Accurate to say
2023 data.
that the same.
I know, you'll have to explain it a different
Yeah.
way for
Sure.
me to understand it, because didn't you say in the red line with the federal government that there were, tell me again why it's 697 going down to 609?
Yep.
That's attributed to COVID funding, and
So isn't that an outlying event? I mean,
But
you're
it's
saying
not
the
based
data
off of our
source.
data access, those are true facts about the data. It's
But
not.
then-
it's the truth.
So the
We're
methodology is
assuming-
different for each of these
Correct,
lines.
either we're reporting all
I
of
think
them,
that's
No.
tricky.
all
is
the
you're-
facts, or?
Or no, it's not. Well, you're saying that you
It's-
had consistent data streams here, not here, so you just didn't put what you had for the 1 year in.
We put the consistent fundings that we had, and the underlying assumption is that there haven't been significant changes in philanthropy funding
Could,
across those years.
could you have then done like a proxy, like, you know, like using like that, like, you know, like.
we couldn't do a
transitory
proxy
property?
because we only used real data
Okay.
that we have. So without going into the nuances of anonymized data of funders who we've worked with.
Yeah, no one can imagine
I
the
would
one you're
like to
talking
direct
about.
our attention to the most comprehensive
Yeah.
data we have, which is 2023,
Okay.
which includes the 100 million that we are not seeing on the bar graph, because it would tell a false narrative of, oh, we saw a huge spike in philanthropic investment. That is what a line graph would have told you had we had this big spike here, and it looks like we have an infusion of 100 million versus representation of this
I see
year.
what
So
you're
let's
saying.
focus on 2023, which is our most reflective of the data that our private partners were able to provide, we were able to access, to look at what we have as funding in Tulsa.
Okay, I have Counselor Decker, right, and then Counselor Archie. And we know you have more content. This is specific,
Yeah.
I think, to these methodology slides or the.
Sure.
Well, I appreciate that we're
numbers.
co-creating this, because ultimately this body's gonna have to make some big decisions, so we have
Absolutely.
to get
Yes.
clear. The whole purpose of this is to provide clarity.
Yeah.
So, and I understand, right, things that are private are maybe more opaque than things that are public and vice versa. My question is, I don't know how we have a discussion about investment in children and we're not talking about capital. I just want to say for the table, I don't know that we have consensus here that we understand that municipal government in Oklahoma is to step into this space. I think a lot of assumptions are being made that because setting priorities last year on the budget included the concept of families, children, and youth, that somehow we all agree that means that municipal government now is in that lane.
Right.
In other states, municipal government is in that lane. They also are in charge of the school districts. They also have diverse revenue sources that we don't have. So at some point, we as a body are going to have that conversation, and maybe this is the path of informing that discussion. But because we make so many capital investments, including in TCC, the Discovery Lab, Tulsa Public School outside infrastructure, heavy investments, not only in IoT, but also in vision, to leave those out, I think is a misstep. Not because I'm saying, there's not programming and initiatives that could be the next thing, but that is the way that we've understood where we can show up for our youth, is with adding accessible play equipment or making sure families have crossing guards and can walk. So to kind of leave that out I think is short-sighted. Not for us or anyone before us that made those decisions, but also the citizens of Tulsa that have voted time and again to invest. You know, ultimately, they're hearing this and going, wait, we thought we, you know, did these things. Even the gathering place, you know. The other question I had around county is not just the health department and the library system, but the family shelter. They've been standing in that space more than, I think, a lot of places, right, where they truly will take in a family. So I didn't know if that's reflected on there. And then I think the other ones, Counselor Bell has covered, the health department, library system, county parks, right, have a lot of programming and,
Yeah, county parks and city parks are represented in the data.
in the data, but not necessarily like the shelter or the big number was really centered on juvenile justice and some prevention.
I think the library budget's about 50 million.
Yeah, so, that was my question about capital, and then, it seems to me, because that's how we've asked historically Tulsans to invest. Because we have to have this new conversation about, like, as the federal and state governments maybe don't show up the way we need them to, is that where we show up? Obviously, philanthropy has really been in that space. And then my other two questions, and I don't know if we'll get there with your next slides, and if so, that's fine, but how did you arrive at the school district numbers, and what do you think contributed to the outcomes in those districts? Is it what they've stated, or what you have analyzed independently as the outcome?
So
Or your group?
these numbers here were provided, we worked with districts, we worked with the city. The city actually populated a spreadsheet, so this is data that those entities provided
The school
given
district
the-
provided to the city?
Yes.
Okay.
to Impact Tulsa, when we put
To
this data
Impact.
together.
Okay.
I also want to just affirm, like your naming, that we're operating in this framework of funding capital projects and infrastructure, which is critical and necessary. Also just highlighting, previously, the city did not fund affordable housing. You all used your positional authority to try to facilitate meeting the needs of our residents and got into affordable housing. I can say the same thing for homelessness, so I like that you're saying we're auditing and thinking through what is the role of the city, and just want to share how, again, this preliminary tool does help, I think, in that conversation, and also helps us think through how you all are looking at your infrastructure investments as
For
supporting
sure.
children
I
and
mean, in
families.
2018, conversations at this table, we're still debating philanthropy and, you know, faith institutions are taking care of hunger and housing. And we kind of got to a place where it was like, maybe we've got to step in. And our partners were saying, we need you to step in. The gap is so wide, we can't stretch anymore. So, but as you know, that was ongoing conversations, and then I do think when a crisis shows up, that forces us to really prioritize, because there's always more need than dollars. So I do think if we can get to a consensus here of the data that we need to help drive the decisions, that might be helpful.
Okay, I have Counselor Archie, then Dudden, and then Counselor Lakin. Which let us know, like, I think people's questions, I'm guessing, are still attached to kind of the current question, but if we start getting into, you're like, this is our next part of our presentation, let me know, and I can be the rude person who's something off. Okay, Counselor Archie.
Hey, thank you so much for this. Of course, I'm wrapping my mind around all these numbers. One thing that I don't see, what about the tribes? You think about some of the ways that they're investing in children with their grant programs, with Head Start, et cetera. Where would that be represented on this?
So our tool is built out to separate the funding streams that we have specifically from the tribes, so we can do that for the pieces that we have. A lot of those are built in the federal funding streams,
Okay.
so they would be within that group. But our tool allows you to flip things out. We have not prioritized those questions for this council meeting.
When you say tool, is it, sorry, chair privilege, when you say tool, is it like an API that's combing through like just publicly available budgets, or what is that, what do you mean?
This is a Power BI system that was built off data that was provided to us from the different institutions as CSVs from
Okay.
different years reported out to us from each year and controlled by the institutions that provided it for us, so.
And it'll be
they
publicly
categorize
available
these
in a
things.
dashboard at the top.
But you guys aren't you're not manually going and looking for those things, it is like algorithmically, like AI, like scanning through for like these coded, like, cause you said it has coded dictionary terms.
So the coded dictionary terms refers to how people are placing the funding streams under different categories. It has nothing to do with AI.
Okay, I just wasn't sure what's
yeah,
automatically
and
scanning
it's-
for what.
Manually done from data from 2023, the most recent year.
Okay, so the people, I just wanted to double check this, so the, like the coded tags, that's being done by people based on like their best judgment about what category it falls under?
Yes.
When you say the people, the folks who contributed their data?
Yes.
Yes.
Like their own tags, okay.
Yes, not their own tags, so that we can have, like, again, a streamlined conversation, city to city and state to state.
Yeah.
If it's the city of Tulsa or the Tulsa Public Schools or a private funder, they take their budgets and allocations and input their data into a norm spreadsheet. So we're having the same conversation.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense, sorry, go ahead, Counselor.
No, that's helpful. I feel like I'm gonna get a doctorate in data analysis. And this is just trying to understand from, we visited the Cherokee Nation. Some of their funding does come federally, but some of it is, I think they call it enterprise dollars. I mean, some of the investments that they're making is because they make it, not just necessarily pass-throughs. So I would be interested in sort of, breaking down the particulars of, because part of it, what's happening nationally, some of these funds may be renewed, maybe they won't be renewed, but I'd be curious about what funding streams are more likely to be sustained versus less likely to be sustained, because that might help us plan and anticipate what we need to be thinking about. So that's my
That's a
comment.
good question, thank you.
Yeah, there's people at McKinsey, I feel like, working on that. Okay, Counselor Dutton, and then I have Counselor Lakin.
So I'll try to be brief. So I'm reading the last page, the appendix and the methodology, and the data collection mostly through Impact Tulsa. And do we have a breakdown of how they collected that data and from who? I would be interested in those partners that provided the data. And also, you have a little disclaimer at the bottom about the fiscal map excluding facilities and many larger capital expenses. I think that's important that we find out those sources to coordinate with the amount of dollars that we're looking for to provide for these services. I know that there are certain things listed like SNAP, WIC, and TANF. And I know that WIC also provides services for families, for children. So I'm just curious as to if we can get some more updated information that we can work with that gives a more highlighted view of where we actually are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your first question around who we collected data from, we collected data from the city of Tulsa, from all 3 public schools in the city of Tulsa, from private partners who will remain anonymous, like their data is anonymized for a variety of reasons. Tulsa Tech and Tulsa Community College, and I think that covers the local partners.
Yes, and we have different departments at the state that we reached out to within this, and a lot of the national stuff was brought in from formal things and from Children's Funding Project assisting us in doing those breakdowns by the specific categories. And one thing that I'd just bring back, the question of the capital funding has come up a couple times. That's to be consistent with the other fiscal maps that have been generated from the Children's Funding Project. They have made a choice to remove those capital funding from their things so that they can compare it across cities. And just
Do those other
highlighting.
cities have diverse revenue streams?
Yeah.
That would be the difference of our cities. and
But I
Oklahoma.
understand it.
Yeah.
And then, so we make
It's
it
still
so it's
not apples to
comparable
apples.
at that level to other cities. We also have highlighted this, we have a very capable auditing department at the city, and we're not them. And we are providing, building out this tool as a strategic line of sight for future investments, rather than trying to be a catch you on previous year's data. So we're looking at where are funding streams coming into Tulsa as recently as we can provide the data for it, and how can we improve that full picture going forward. And we're not necessarily saying this is the absolute full picture of funding.
I would just say the only thing to add to that, if we pull in our role as supporting the Mayor's Office of Children, Youth, and Families priorities of increasing the number of 4-year-olds who are enrolled in pre-K, improving our literacy rate so that by 3rd grade, students are proficient or higher on that exam, and that we see more students faring better on middle grade math so that they go on to graduate high school and enroll in a post-secondary institution and graduate from a post-secondary institution to go on to obtain a living wage job and career. How can we look at the city's role, the county's role, philanthropy's role in understanding how those dollars, the flexible dollars especially, are helping move outcomes and having this conversation. I would say for the first time ever in terms of those entities coming together around a table. Would you like to go, or did you want to do
I had
Councilor Lakin's question?
Counselor Lakin and Bush, do you all have stuff that's directed, okay.
Okay.
So how do you get the philanthropy numbers for this?
Our philanthropic partners, so the interesting conversation in showing them the map is all of their internal processes and databases are different, so they're having to have a conversation internally on, okay, well, how are we parsing out if we give this to an expectant mother versus is it for a baby versus is it for housing? They take a spreadsheet, which we're happy to send over the copy that we gave the city of Tulsa that our private funders received, and they're inputting their giving data based on how they allocate funds.
How many partners are you surveying?
We surveyed 5 this time, and we're broadening that.
Okay, so we're only looking at information from 5 philanthropic partners, not the whole
20 or
of
30.
our.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
exhaustive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a minimal amount.
I think the numbers are way underestimated. In the knowledge that I have, I'll bet that across 2 foundations, I can make that line item work if early childhood education is included in youth funding sources.
Yeah,
So-
we've talked to the 5 major funders of our city, and like I said, for fiscal year 25, fiscal year 24, we're doing more.
I just look back at the information that I have over the last 7 years, and
Yeah.
it's more than all.
It's 49.
It's 49. One of those was 49, in fact. So I just have a hard time believing that number. I believe it's a lot higher than what is represented here.
Yeah.
To Counselor Dector Wright's point, and I think Counselor Dutton's as well, sometimes our only resource is capital. Sometimes that's the only thing that we can ask voters to go out and help us with. So we have participated to the greatest extent possible with capital revenue sources to do things in the youth funding space. And I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I'm starting to question, like on safety, if we only say 2,000 has been assigned from safety in 2023 from the city of Tulsa, and we have a lot of crossing guards out there that are beyond $2,000. So I
We
just,
put a lot of sidewalks in too.
I know,
Well,
I just don't.
sidewalks
I-
won't be counted
I
in
just-
this.
I don't know how safe.
Safety is defined.
Well, yeah, and then the sources, I'm still trying to figure out the sources of the information, because I
The
do
source
find
is the
myself
city
trying
of
to
Tulsa.
add to these line items,
Yeah.
materially add to them.
Yeah.
So I'm just questioning the
Yeah.
output right now, but I want to fix it
Sorry,
so that
Paul.
we can get a better picture of what's really occurring.
Yeah.
And
I just
happy
want to
help
make
get
sure that
folks.
the narrative is not like this is our best guess. These are data provided by foundations. This is data provided straight to us from the city of Tulsa. And they counted for the $2,000. This funds local programs which address juvenile crime, costs related to prosecution. So that is juvenile curfew fines specifically, based on the categorization
All
of
five?
safety.
So we don't know though if like for instance, the crossing guard program is under
I mean,
someone
you could
else's.
The crossing guard program would
Yeah.
not count toward a direct,
There's
it would
just
not
so
count for the
much.
criteria here. Just because it's not for the criteria of the fiscal map. It's not saying it's an irrelevant service, but when we're looking at the criteria in our spreadsheet,
Because
that is
the
all.
fiscal map is coming from a national organization that's doing fiscal mapping for different municipalities. They might not have a crossing guard program under the municipality, it might be in the school district. So I think that's what I'm hearing, is they're trying to just look at the elements that city A, city B, and now city C have.
Well, wait, but
I
some of
think-
these cities have their
So
school
that goes-
district and their health
Correct,
department.
and that's the
under
point
their
I'm
That's
city.
right.
making, is
Yeah.
like,
That's right.
Yeah, you gotta
unless we're
assign
looking
it.
at other Oklahoma
It's money
cities
spent.
that have the same
Yep.
revenue structures
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
state level that we're forced to have. I mean, we could go back
agree.
and maybe look at Mississippi or Alabama before they updated their revenue structures to see, but I wouldn't wanna look at Mississippi and Alabama maybe as where we should be looking to
Yeah.
invest in education, because I think we're all at the bottom
I
having
think
those
it-
conversations
I
about
think
how
what
we
I'm
change it.
hearing that I'll name for our Impact Tulsa friends is maybe like, because I understand that the methodology here is like, how can we be as apples to apples as possible with other communities so we can really talk about smart investments in a cohesive, even national conversation, while acknowledging that there are these like unique things about it, whether it's our city or government structure or funding streams. So I think it could be helpful maybe in the next time we look at this, since it's like an iterative conversation, to go like, hey, what's like our most near contextual peer city, and what does it look like for them? So that I'm just trying to think of how we can know what the best way to look at this data is in like a meaningful way that helps us really be thoughtful. And so I'm just thinking through if there's like a city in a similar context
Based as
as
our
us.
structure.
Yeah.
Our state structure,
That,
yeah.
like, or like, their city, that has the same type of, they have their health department and the school system separate, or they have, they're only, I know we're the only state in the nation that's mostly funded through sales tax,
Yep.
but if there's something as proxy as possible. I have, Counselor, I think, Bush next, and then I had Bengal.
No,
But I have,
nope, you
not
already,
anymore?
you already clarified
Okay.
it.
But I know the mayor just came to the table. Was there something you wanted to speak to before we moved on?
Thank you very much. I'll be really quick. I think how maybe, as we think about the apples to apples and the diverse funding flows, I think what is different in the goal of like this exercise is to think about the resources going into the operational programmatic side of moving outcomes. And so that's the reason why the capital stuff's not in there. It doesn't mean it doesn't count. It's more so like the actual programmatic pieces that are, and so it's not this shouldn't be looked at as like, you're not doing your job, or the city's not doing a job in spending. It's more so like, hey, of the resources that we're spending to move outcomes, these are what those look like. Now, it could be argued that, obviously, Discovery Lab, whatever, like, also helps with outcomes. And so that's the reason why it's cut out of there. I do think it would be of interest, and I think it would be a good exercise to include some of those things as we're thinking about it as a city. But I do want to center, and I think the other thing is, like, maybe out of this conversation, you get to, well, these other cities have more diverse funding streams, and there's a number of different ways in how we might think about how we impact that. Maybe it's advocacy to change how we do business here, to say, maybe we don't have the ability to do some of those things. But I think what might also be helpful as a today picture of as best of an apples to apples as we can get, is probably gonna be more close to apples to plums, maybe not apples to oranges, is just the cities that are going through this exercise, like, what does their city budget, what's the number they're spending, no matter where the source comes from? That might be somewhat helpful because, to normalize things. I think also the majority, I'm saying this without looking at the city specifically, but I imagine the majority of the cities that CFP has worked with are cities that do not house their school district within them. There's actually not that many cities where that is true. There's a few outliers, but I would imagine, so it might also be helpful if there's interest as we move forward. I think this is a great conversation about how do we continue to strengthen this as a tool that can be used for decision-making. So I appreciate all the feedback. I think it's really, really healthy to do it. It might also be good just to give you a flavor of some of the other the actual cities, who they are. And so you can size, all that kind of stuff as a comparison piece. And I would venture to say, as an overview of the fiscal mapping work across the country, I think I can commit to like Elizabeth Gaines or whoever from CFP talking about overall why they're doing it, how they do it, some of the methodology and aspects. It might just illuminate some of the things that might be missing. It might also, to your kind of questions, Counselor Lakin, say, hey, well, until you have everything, why would you present anything? 'Cause there's some build there, and what I would say is be really helpful as we go back out and we're continuing to survey private land. I think working with like, TCF to kind of do something might be actually really helpful, right? Like so there's some.
I'm offering it in a constructive.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I'm
Yeah, no, I
questioning
think
it because
that
I don't understand it, but because I just feel like it's got to be so much more.
Well, I
based
think
on
we
what
could
I
end up
see.
being a leader across the country if we get, higher and higher participation from private philanthropy who's contributing to it. Actually, it makes our fiscal map stronger than anybody else's, I guess is my point.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
I
agree.
think there'd be a lot of interest in figuring out how do we work together and make that. So,
Yep,
anyway,
happy to do it.
just meant more of a flashlight and less of a hammer type of deal, and that means you gotta continue to build it, so, anyway.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I have Counselor Bush and then Dr. Ray and then Archie. Oh, you did, okay.
Quick question.
If you raise your hand at all, I
Does this
just got you.
include this national mapping, childcare, both public and private childcare? The reason I'm asking, the state of Oklahoma, DHS just cut
The
$10.
subsidies. Yep.
6 and older kids no longer have daycare.
Yep.
It's gonna be an impact, if you will, on all the programming in the capital, so, and I don't think we're gonna get it back. I met with Suzanne and I'm not thinking it's coming back.
And this is only city, county,
I know.
but yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's
Yeah,
like as of last week.
It's just capital.
Yeah, the subsidy.
Yeah.
So I think it's an impact on, yeah.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, in Oklahoma City, there was a 6-year-old that was killed.
Yep.
There was nowhere for them to go. So I didn't know if the data is including the childcare aspect of this.
Only if we received it from our large federal programs, but not
Okay.
represented in the county.
Is that all state? Local.
I have Counselor Dr. Ray. Oh, wait, did you have an immediate follow-up on?
No, it's still on these slides, it's just a baby question.
Oh, no, okay, ask your baby question, then bigger question.
Do you have more to present?
They do.
We just wanted to kind of put a bow on our presentation, and we can, can we do that?
let them
really?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Sorry, everyone kept alleging that their question was immediate to that slide.
No, there's not much on the rest of the slide.
Okay, yeah, well, please finish
Yeah,
it.
not necessarily. This slide is just breaking down specific areas, how they fit in with the priority areas. General youth funding here is capturing wider streams because they weren't a priority level here. Listed in these ones, an important thing is to highlight this is where health outcomes show up in the full tool. And then the workforce and career youth is the Vision 2016 grant for teachers. You, in an exercise of where that should be plugged in, you could argue that it could be improving student outcomes because it's centered around teachers. Here it was plugged in for workforce and career youth and getting people into jobs. Such as one thing to highlight, the general youth funding there that you see there on the 1.2 million is general parks, and then there's some stuff on improving student outcomes that has split that funding across around program-specific funds going towards things from the parks and a couple other grants. But that's highlighted here.
Anything else?
We're all done?
Yeah, so I think we've probably repeated this a few times, but, you know, this iterative annual tool, already have heard some great questions on what's represented, what's not, and even if it's not in the fiscal map, how are we accounting for that data of infrastructure that you all mentioned? And then hearing you, Counselor Lakin, on, and we've also, in our feedback with our funding partners, they've also stepped up to commit to try to bring in more philanthropic partners to contribute their data, so I would love to also connect offline about that. But we hope that you all can leverage this tool for shifting from funding individual programs to a more citywide conversation with the council, with the cabinet, and all of those that we have around there. From the tribes to philanthropy to all of our city departments and our school districts in the city of Tulsa. Also, making sure we reduce duplication and understand where those dollars are going, and how we can target public dollars when we anticipate these gaps. And again, wanting to affirm the flexible spending of the ARPA dollars you all applied, and thinking about that with coordination. Also, just ensuring that services aren't determined by family outcome, and that is one of the shortcomings of federal programs that are income restricted or philanthropy that's also income restricted. As stewards of our city, all children can access what they need to thrive is another helpful reason why we think about understanding where dollars are going, and reaching folks across lines of difference, and just naming that the city is powerful in its public dollars that they coordinate to support that 80% where our students are out of school. So we talk about schools as responsible for our outcomes, but as you all have discussed in lots of your decisions, especially when we think about this summer, what happens outside of school. And then lastly, we just want you all to also be able to use it to anticipate federal funding changes and make smart decisions with, hopefully this tool, as it continues to evolve, is useful for you. So I will pause there. We are going to begin our refresh of data, so feedback that you have now or feedback that you have, we would want to make sure we're refining it for utilization. You all will be able to access this dashboard. It's going to be available in January, so you can toggle between state, county, federal, city of Tulsa, and so forth. We do want there to be a feedback loop outside of this space. Like, if a few of you all have reached out or I've reached out to you, would love to continue the conversation, especially if you all want to understand the city's contribution to this data the next round. And I will stop there for the remaining questions.
Okay, I have Counselor Dectory and then Archie.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
And then Lakin.
So I don't want to harp on these slides, but it would be very helpful for a visual learner like myself that the color coding is consistent from slide to slide, because here it's federal, here it's federal, here it's City of Tulsa is yellow. So I know it seems like a small thing, but especially again when we're grabbing screenshots and things. And then I would personally like to see a breakout of the 3 school districts, like as a sub-category, because you have a small suburban, relatively middle-class to wealthy community, a highly urbanized, large, impoverished district, right? And then you have Union that kind of straddles the both. So for some of us, right, we have primarily the non-TPS communities in our parts of the city. And so that's always going to be the thing I'm going to ask. And I'm going to layer on top of that, I would love to, as we move forward, to directly, whether it's elected to elected, directly engage our school board counterparts. I know that the superintendents are on the cabinet, but I feel like I'm getting a lot of questions from our parallel, cohort. And I don't have answers, and I'm not on the children's cabinet, so I don't know how we kind of layer those folks at the table with us. When we go to demographics and thing, I think it would be helpful for me to better understand how many Tulsans are aged 0 to 24. What's the projection of that over the next 5 to 10 years? Because I honestly don't know. And can we get a breakout in these subcategories of like 0 to 4, 4 to 18, or 16, and then like 16 to 24? And I know that might not align to like the national, but when I hear you specifically talking about like the reading, right, the math in 8th grade, and then career readiness, it kind of aligns to that. But if there's a different breakout, that would be helpful to me to understand. And I don't know if we also layer into like immigration patterns or relocation patterns versus, right, I don't know what that looks like. But that would help me as I kind of zoom out a little bit about like, if we're trying to plan for the next 10 years, or 25.
Well, I think, I'm gonna interject. I
Yeah,
agree
of
with you.
course.
I think we
We're in
need to
discussion.
break down the school-age children even more specifically.
Yeah, because like at 4-year-old program, we're trying to, you know, push and get more kids in the pre-K public school programming. But that 0 to 4 is, you know, now where we don't have childcare or whatnot. The final question that I had was around the career part. When we're talking about jobs, is it 16 to 24 is the cohort?
14 to 24, there's some
14.
apprenticeship
Okay.
in there, but
like
16 to
earning-
24.
Is the 14 paid or it's, okay.
There are apprenticeship programs
Okay.
that they'll get paid in.
So that workforce element for me, if we could kind of drill down, like, obviously living wage is the goal, or maybe thriving beyond living wage would be awesome. Because sometimes 24-year-olds also have a 0-year-old or a 4-year-old. So, right, it's the next cycle. And then, and just some of the research I've been doing since we had this conversation last, it's come to my attention that we could maximize our efficiency if like a summer program for middle school and elementary school age kids have high schoolers and this 18 to 24 working as like mentors, counselors, assistant teachers. And so I don't know if that's part of like this idea of how we're gonna layer this together, but if there's any synergy that you guys are like imagining, I think it would be helpful to share that with us so that we can really see like maximum impact for investment. Because, right, if you're funding a summer program in the Parks Department and you're hiring not only teachers who need summer work, because they also have families, but maybe those teenagers. I worked in a program in San Francisco called Aim High. So it was my first teaching experience. I was like a sophomore in high school. It was middle school kids at risk that were put in this program. And then I worked at the high school where the facility was being used, so they hired the local high schoolers to kind of be the teacher aide. You know, the young, kind of like older kid that could mentor. And it was really to like help the kids move between classrooms. You might do like, it was maybe like a camp counselor kind of feeling, but to be 15 or 16, like I felt like, oh, maybe I could be a teacher after I had this experience. So I could see where those kinds of things might be part of this planning, but the sooner we can talk about that, I think that would be helpful. So those are the questions that I had. If I have more, I'll certainly email them. I do think we need to be in this dialogue. It's not very often that we all get to just kind of have a conversation about what's the information we need to help drive these decisions, right? I think we all care about children, we all care about families, we all want to, whether we're here for 2 more years, 4 more years, or 10 more years, we wanna make sure that the work we're doing is meaningful, and the parallels are there, right? Like this conversation was a navigation when we were talking about housing and homelessness. We're still navigating it, but maybe we're like in 2.0. Like we've committed the dollars. Now we're just like outlining the policies and things. So I would also like to finally, this is my last thing. I'd like to know more about the national organization since we're using that as kind of one of the scaffolds that we're building this around. And what cities that are similar to ours. I know New York City, LA,
Not comparison.
Boston have child
Yep.
opportunity funds.
Yep.
I don't think that's what we need to know. I need to know about Cincinnati.
We
I need to know-
hyperlinked Chattanooga and Louisville.
Right.
And I'll make sure you get the soft copy.
Yeah.
They're probably most comparable when we look
Okay,
at.
that's gonna be helpful for me
Yeah.
in contemplating our landscape.
Okay, just a couple of things. One, I'll say, like, when it, just on the, as a hopefully helpful piece, as you're getting questions from like, school board members or whomever, do filter those through Crystal or Ashley, or, like, they exist to work for, you all and everybody here to make sure we can run those things down. And one of the cool things about the expansion of the children's cabinet is that there is a group that's actually just young people, and so there's 120 people across all those groups, I think, and 50 of them are young. I say that to say, if there needs to be a space created for that elected to elected type of conversation about this stuff, they also can help facilitate and pull that together if that's like a desire. And I think that, I mean, I hadn't really thought about it a whole lot, but it sounds like it might be a really good idea for us to, you know, think through on how we get that done to, you know,
Right,
just
because
make
they're
those
having big
connections.
conversations about funding
100%.
right now and asking voters to fund things, and so then the questions become like, are you double dip? You know, not
Yeah, I
us
mean,
double dipping, but
yeah.
like the public, like, hold on a second, you're trying to do literacy through this bond, we're trying to, so I just would like to have some clarity, and it's better just to be in those conversations.
Yeah.
Across.
You know, I will say, less about Jinx, because I think this is also true there. I don't know it as directly as I didn't spend as much time in my direct interaction with the leadership at Jinx on their part of the Children's Cabinet. But if you look at the TPS bond, for example, their capital priorities are out-of-school time and workforce. It's one of the reasons why I think those ideas have bubbled up from like a programmatic standpoint on some of the things we've had conversations about. The same is true at Union with what they've done on the workforce development stuff that I think is probably the best example in the city on just like the career readiness track that
Well,
Union kids
even
are
the
on.
city's piece, right, with
100%,
the forward technicians. all that,
1,000%. So I think there's a lot of alignment there, but to your point, like making sure that the investments leverage each other, but they're not doing necessarily the same thing, or we kind of see like who's contributing where, yeah. The other thing that I would say would be incredibly helpful, maybe it's through Council Aid or maybe through Sarah, the questions that are popping up, it might be good to also get those sent over from everybody so we make sure, 'cause there might be some things, I'm thinking about like the student population 0 to 5, that might be something that could be sent like today.
I'm guessing you already
Yeah,
have it.
yeah, and so for some of
This
those
is a different
things,
report.
it would be good just to know what does everybody kind of want to know coming out of this conversation, what we can send immediately, and then so we can make sure we track. I don't want anything to get lost because we was in the meeting, we didn't write it down correctly, and so if it's possible, Sarah or, you know, someone down here to kind of collect some of those things up, although we're still talking about them right now,
Sure.
because I want to make sure we can track to make sure we get the answers that
Absolutely.
need to be transferred over, so.
I'm sure you have that information, you just didn't bring it for today's report, but.
Some of it might not, though.
I don't
Like, some
have
of
a
it-
concept of,
I will say it's also good to understand where we might have
I mean,
to
I
gap
always
at
just
some
hear
of
like the
stuff
birth rate is slowing down, so, but I'm like, for Tulsa, is it slowing down, you know?
It
like,
is. Sorry.
I just don't know.
It is fine.
Sorry, that's my data collection.
Yes, how's the birth rate in
Okay,
Tulsa
you,
going?
I don't care who provides the data, I don't have it.
It's hey, and then we'll have our silver
Which actually
tsunami
might
years
be
come.
helpful, because the girl pointed out we don't have any early childhood slots.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Tap the
Okay,
brakes.
I had Counselor Lakin next.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how you use data from the public schools, so Jinx is only, I don't know, half in Tulsa, maybe a little bit more, probably a little bit more. Do you adjust for that? Or do you just like take all of Jinx's data and apply it to the city of Tulsa or to Tulsa? It is in Tulsa County, but I don't know how you're using like Jinx data, Union data. You have to add Bixby because Bixby does touch the city of Tulsa too, if you're using public school data.
We have
But it's just a
neighborhoods,
small portion.
yeah, we have neighborhoods where the kids are assigned to Bixby Public.
So a lot of them, we geographically code them.
Okay.
And where students are specifically living. I think that this specific one for this fiscal map is the districts overall.
As a
including the
whole.
bowl. And this
Yeah,
is Jinx, Tulsa Union, and again, this is to get a ballpark of the total
Yeah,
group.
it's
as it
probably,
lands.
it might be close enough because, yeah, whatever Bixby, whatever advantage you would have in including Bixby would be a reduction if you didn't include the part of Jinx that's not serving Tulsa residents. Okay, the second, just idea, suggestion, but it may already be part of the mapping. So 72 or 73% of donations come from individuals. You all are looking at philanthropy as just foundations. and you're not gonna survey everybody in Tulsa. I mean, that'd be a waste of time. Is there an alternative approach where you can look at the recipients? So if you can take the OP, Youth Services of Tulsa, Parent Child Center, Dream Center, you just keep going down the list and saying, these organizations generally fall into the criteria for youth funding that we want to measure. And then you just go out and get their 990 figures for expenses. It may be a better number to use because then you include all of the rest of us, not just the foundations and corporations. You're including everybody at this table who may have made a personal donation to those organizations. It's still going to be, there's still going to be a few challenges, like you can't throw Salvation Army's entire number in there because they have services that are outside of youth. But you could account for that somehow. I think you'd get a better number,
I think
if you can.
For out-of-school time, are we only talking, so that raises, I'm glad you're saying this. So there's, as you know, because you got kids that do theater and I do too. So like, let's take some of these nonprofits that do theater or music, not the one where they're busing kids from TPS to the site, but the ones that do have those kids. We are also getting donations, like we provide tuition-free after-school music programming. Some of it's foundation funded, but some of it is literally just individuals who either their kids went through or they just want kids to have the opportunity. So I'm just thinking around town where it's not these big institutions, but maybe like an adjacent program of a bigger institution. Are we looking at things like that?
So one.
Because they're standing in the gap right now.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why, and I think there's a portion of that could certainly be possible. I think one of the reasons why it's typically done the other way is to kind of understand like who's investing at scale in a lot of ways. It's a slightly more predictable of an indicator in some ways. But I do believe though, as I say that, part of this is also continuing to work to perfect the metric that you're using. And so there's just some of that that's gonna be tough. I actually wonder, I think it would be slightly tough because you're still gonna have some organizations that fall in the gap in some ways. But I am curious though, as we think about maybe some of the other smaller gifts that are out there, how you might be able to collect that. And the 990s might be the best way to do it. And I guess my curiosity in testing that data is there a lot of volatility in that, or is it pretty consistent? I think with some of the big institutions, you somewhat err on the side there because it tends to be somewhat consistent things that can count on. I'd be curious.
Well, faith community.
That's what I'm actually
Those will be the
curious.
outliers.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious because
That's
it
mostly
might not have the
individual.
volatility that I would think. It might be pretty consistent. I don't know. We'd have to
Think about
test
our
that.
big faith
I think
institutions that had after
I
school
think it
and
will be,
weekends
except for
and
capital
summer.
campaign years.
Consistent or?
It'll be consistent,
Yeah,
except for the
yeah.
capital campaign years, and you
That'd
could,
be right,
you can, I don't know, discount for those or something like
Yeah.
that. There's some kind of tool
Curious.
that people in your space
It may be
use.
a good question for CFP, because I'm sure there's been questions of like how other people have efforted something like that. I mean, I imagine other people.
Yeah,
think about
if
that
you
longer.
if you send a survey to Tulsa Community Foundation, I'm gonna go through our 990 and tell you every organization that we gave to that's in the youth space that's in Tulsa.
Send it to them.
There'd be
But that's not,
duplication there.
but that's not, well, no, not duplication from our side.
Not from your side,
But
but
if you look at it
because of
from
the
the other
pass-through.
side, then you're gonna see everything that I sent to those organizations, plus everything that everybody else sent to those organizations, including the individuals, which is often just left on the side. But it's the most material element that's out there.
Yeah.
But even religious institutions that do,
Yeah.
child programming outside of foundations and stuff, that's all individuals mostly.
Yep.
And there's
True.
large
Yeah.
religious institutions across our city that stand in that gap for summer programming, after-school stuff.
Yeah,
and-
One
Well, and I
Hope
think-
does that every day.
Yeah.
I think that also highlights, sorry, I only
It's
thought
a-
about like
it's
the
a
health department and
big
Medicaid and
from
like chipped out or things like that, but that also highlights like our private, very large health institutions. That Anyway, there's,
Well, and like Mother's Day Out programs, right? They get
I-
child
we can-
nutrition dollars,
Yeah,
but
there's
then
a-
most of it's like,
yeah, I hear a follow-up deep
Yeah, that
dive.
feedback is helpful. I'll also
yes.
check with Children's Funding Project. Also, just transparently, our funding partners who contribute get their own landing page, so they're able to have conversations across their
Yeah.
giving. So we did get asked, like, can you just give this to my granted organizations, but being able to
Yeah.
track dollars back?
I-
But I'll take that to CFP.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
a good
I do
question.
think at the least, I'm just naming, related to the library especially, and then thinking about youth programming at the health department, I do think that would be really helpful in this picture, because some of that really is very direct for health outcomes or workforce development. Those ones are really tied to that, and at least are very like clear government dollars. I would definitely wanna, like, I think we should be able to try to snag that from them pretty easily, or I'm happy to also help with, like, if there's Medicaid, whatever data, those are requests that are pretty doable.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. I know it's like herding cats to collect data from various entities, so I want to acknowledge that I know a lot goes into what you've shown us, and I know that's no easy feat to get people to turn over data to or build the trust to get it, including when it's, whether it's anonymized or not, so I know it takes a lot. Are there any other closing items? I know, again, this is iterative and ongoing. Okay.
No, thank you all for your time, your feedback, your questions and suggestions. You all are we're gonna compare our notes on what we captured for next steps and try to see what we can get back. Is that
I wrote
accurate?
down 13 questions.
Okay. And then would
But I
love
did-
to.
13 reasons why.
Well, I did have to go to the restroom during part, so I'll have to get.
Yeah. Rewind the tape.
That was the most important part.
I know which counselors I missed, so I'll follow up with them.
We're also gonna follow up and want feedback on the elected, so I don't know if y'all remember the graphic of our action alliances, but there's an electeds, action alliance that encompasses you all, state, local, federal, but how would you all want to engage there, given like quorum rules, so we could just start planning that? We would love to actually activate that, to have a greater touch base with council beyond the quarterly updates.
We actually have a sit-down meeting with our state legislators, but in the past, we've had meetings with our school board, remember? I mean, it's been a while since we've done that.
Back in the vision days, I
Yeah.
think.
So we
Yeah.
could do like
That's
local
Jack's
electeds.
But
Yeah.
we're also looking at
Yeah.
putting something together with our county counterparts.
Maybe we can
So,
collaborate on that to not duplicate, or
um,
add on
yeah,
maybe?
we'll just work-
Okay.
I have one more question, and I know, so as a representative of the 146,000 Tolsons, not every Tolson that I represent has a kid in public school. So how are we talking about homeschool kids, private school kids, that cohort of children? Are we talking about them? Are we thinking about them? What percentage of them?
I'm curious how many kids are homeschooled.
More now than ever
Quote
before.
unquote,
Epic's the largest school district in the
Yeah,
state.
exactly.
We learned that at the state.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Not all kids are even in school.
and,
No.
you know,
On a
school
certain
choice
basis,
is
they
school
don't
choice,
have
but some of those kids
audited and
are not
pushed into
always
my classroom and I would inherit
having an after-school place to be
Yeah.
or a summer school place to be. And I also think about our kids whose needs don't get met in the
Yeah.
traditional sense. That maybe high needs are coming from high needs families.
Yep.
So we can't just be like, oh, you're right, with the,
Well, that'll be.
wherever you want to stand on how the state helps to fund non-public education, there's families that are opting for that, but that doesn't mean they all come from means and have all the supports they need. So I understand like your lens is really through the public school lens as a neighborhood representative and as a constituent representative. I would like to, just, if it's not this work, like how do we get that information? And I don't even know what that looks like. It could come from some of this 990 information, because most of those institutions are
Data from the
non-profit.
state, because there is the out of school.
Sure.
I mean, they collect some data that's specific to Oklahoma.
And we would, I don't know if now that we
Who's
do
opt
that,
out of the traditional.
yeah, or get the tax credits or whatever, or the Henry, or the Nicole Henry
Yes,
scholarships.
that- Right,
Just
there's
for
a huge population of that.
Yeah, for City of Tulsa, I would just be curious, you know, de-identified or whatever, but just so we have an idea of the whole landscape.
Yeah, like where kids are during, I think it is one of those, like, where are children during the day? Because that also helps us know where to meet them, where they're at, whether it is in
Well,
these
and where do
different
they,
settings.
right?
Yeah.
So like kids might start out in public school, then for whatever reason, they end up homeschool
Or they're online school, yeah.
or in a private institution, so.
Did we have any other last, Counselor Dutton? And then we're really getting into lunchtime, which you all know I take so seriously, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Separating you from your
Always
food.
put the like
You're
real
between me and
in-depth conversations at the end.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Counselor Dr. Wright said also, because I had, in my mind, I was thinking of the disability, children with disabilities, and how many are actually home that are not catered to through necessarily TPS, but other sources, and that how that data can also be collected to include in this type of department that the mayor's requested.
Okay, was there anything, was that a,
Great.
thank you all so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Last item, we're adjourned.
Thanks.